with great pleasure, and it's also a very deep honor for me to be able to present to you this next individual who will be speaking to us on a topic today out of their area of expertise. It has to do with matters of the mind and heart. The title of his talk is called Automatic or Conscious. And I'd like to tell a little bit about Mr. Edward Francis Pio, who is a very prominent figure on the Monterey Peninsula, having been here for some decades, has some amazing understandings and stories of the development of this area as well as networking. His area of expertise has been in matters of mind, the brain, how it works, how to be able to tap into various states of mind that we normally naturally have. And he's very effective at teaching that to individuals. But I thought I'd read a little bit of wording that kind of gives an idea of his topic for today. And again, the title is Automatic or Conscious. Most of us would rather drive a car with automatic transmission because it's easier than having to make a conscious decision of when to shift. We also operate our life on automatic for the same reason. It makes sense to operate activities such as brushing our teeth, walking, running, or riding a bicycle on automatic. But for other parts of our life, being on automatic can and does cause a lot of problems. I'm just going to elucidate on that. When on automatic, our daily perceptions and decisions are affected by many of our experiences between birth and 7 years old. These old emotional programs create disease, anxiety, turmoil in our adult life. Find out how you, we, can maximize your health, happiness, and spiritual well-being by becoming conscious in your daily life. Mr. Pio is the founder and executive director of the International Mind Body Institute. It's located at 950 Cass Street in Monterey, California. And he's been teaching medical hypnosis with the theta brainwave technique and yoga nidra meditation to help professionals and private groups in Northern California for at least 49 years. Over 35,000 students have completed live and recorded courses, including 760 men at the Soledad Prison. Mr. Pio has lectured and given courses in several states across the United States, on cruise ships, and internationally in Mexico, Russia, and China. And it is my very great privilege and honor to present to you Mr. Edward Francis Pio. It's you. It's all about you. It's me.
Thank you, Sherry, for a wonderful introduction.
My pleasure.
I'd like to start with making sure that all of you are aware of the fact that we have two computers that make up our so-called brain. Actually, we have two brains. We have the left hemisphere and we have the right hemisphere, and we have USB cables across the top and the bottom to facilitate cross-feed. And so everybody in the education business in the United States says we've got cross-feed, so it's not a problem. Let's not worry about right hemisphere. Because in the United States, as in the case in most of the Western world, we are left brain dominant. Everything that we have done pretty much goes into the left hemisphere of the brain. And so we function essentially with about, what I would say, 1/4 of what we should be functioning with when we bring the right hemisphere into everyday use. Now, what exactly does that mean in regards to today's title? And what it means is this: every single thing that has ever happened to you from inside your mother's womb to the very moment that you die, your last breath, every single thing, every part of you is recorded permanently in your brain. So one of the guys that I'm studying brain with right now on the internet describes the database something like billions of terabytes. Think about this. Terabytes, quite a bit of information, but billions of terabytes of information in our database. So you say, well, that's pretty wonderful, but what has that got to do with our everyday living? Through other studies, we find out that most people are conscious about 10% of the time. The other 90% of the time, they're operating on automatic. Now, what exactly does that mean? It means that while you are eating, you're thinking about what you're going to do after you get through eating. While you are driving, you are thinking about what you're going to do when you get to the destination where you are heading. While you are doing anything, you're not present. And one of the problems as a result of that, you can say, well, my life is good the way it is now. Why would I want to change? One of the problems is that those many, many recordings from the past, when you're on automatic, affect decisions and perceptions presently. So I perceive something that triggers something that happened when I was 4 years old. And that painful memory fires a very important part that most people know about, but they don't know this part of it, which is the fight or flight response. The Creator put into this massive supercomputer that we have, these two computers, the ability to save our lives through a process called the fight or flight, which means that when you fire the fight or flight, everything changes chemically and electrically in your body in order for you to run faster, in order for you to fight faster, in order for you to keep going even though a bear rips off your arm. You know, the practical things which probably were good up until maybe the year 1850 or thereabouts when we became more civilized. Now since that time, here's where the problem is. We don't have bears ripping off all those appropriate in this place. We do have a couple of bears up in the wall, and we are at the bear restaurant. But nevertheless, it's kind of interesting. We're not fighting bears any longer. I think the most important part of that is that if I were in the forest and if I were going to run faster or fight a bear or save my life, I would want to have all of this stuff happen so I could run 10 times faster, so that when the bear ripped off my arm, I could still keep fighting and maybe keep running. All of those things happen. You become a superhuman being. There's a martial art out there that I've only met one guy in my entire career, who was a prisoner at Soledad, who had learned the martial art of being able to fire the fight or flight response on at will in like 2 seconds.
Wow.
And you know what his instructions were after that is fired? To take a minimum of 48 hours to come back to normal.
Wow.
Now, everybody says, well, I'm not taking the martial art. I don't have to worry about fight or flight. And my message to you today is, under the automatic conscious, you do have to worry about it. I have in my class right now an 82-year-old registered nurse who I've known most of my life. She has all of the money that she will ever need if she lives to 150. She has a wonderful family, everybody's successful, grandkids, everything is absolutely wonderful. Guess why she called me a month ago? She was having panic attacks. So we had this conversation over the phone, and I said, Bernie, you have absolutely no reason, do you, for a panic attack? She said, no. She says, everything's perfect in my life. I said, how about the 38 years that you spent as the head of nursing at the hospital? How many times did you fire the fight or flight response during that time? And she said, a lot of times, honestly. And I said, okay, you've been retired 12 years, or 15 years, whatever it was. But those recordings are affecting your daily life. Something triggers today. Everything's fine in my life. Why would I start to have a fight or flight response that we would generally call a panic attack? Why would I need to have that? I said, you don't need to have it from today, but it's the past. So now we can look at her life and we can look at your life and say, I'm telling you, every single one of us are affected when we're on automatic by this ton of information in the past. And every one of us, I don't care how wonderful your life is, every one of us have had major traumas in our life, and we're going to have major traumas before we take the last breath. So my approach to this is, number one, since we already know that, we can do something about it maybe with long-term therapy. That's what our therapy business is built on since Freud. It's built on the idea we need to sort of know what's going on in the past so we can be not affected currently. So what do we have to do this? And the answer is to develop a relaxation response opposite the fight or flight response. Because we're never going to uncover, you could go for probably 1,000 years weekly to therapy, we're never going to uncover essentially the billions of experiences that reflect in today's reaction. So if we can build a relaxation response opposite, so that our thoughts don't automatically fire the fight or flight, and if we can gradually switch the 90% unconscious way of living to 10% unconscious and 90% conscious, 90% conscious, then we also have a one more wonderful life, and healthy and wellness. And without that, we're probably not going to be well. So mindfulness training, meditation, the things that I teach, I don't care what you do, but if you want to have a happier life, if you want to have a wellness in your life, you need to do something about this. You need to develop a relaxation response. You need to get off of automatic. You need to be more conscious. 10% automatic, brushing your teeth and walking is fine. 90% paying attention to the food that's going into your mouth, paying attention to the smells as you drive down the street, the sound of your car, the feeling of the bumps, all of that stuff, rather than thinking an hour in front, or worse than that, an hour behind, which you absolutely can't do anything about either. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your time.